very much for everyone joining. There's some faces that I've seen before and some faces that I haven't seen. So hello, everyone. Thanks for making the time. So my name is Peter, and I'm the co-host of the More Trees campaign, co-founder. And in celebration and support of the World Values Day, we're holding this event. We're hoping that it's going to be an interactive event, so we'll leave plenty of time for questions and answers at the end. And some things that we'll cover is values of reconnecting and the responsibilities and responsibility of reconnecting, it being the theme of this year's World Values Day. We will share some personal and practical journey of regular people starting a small tree planting campaign to fundraise for the London School of Self-Awareness activities and to plant trees for the environment, and managing to do all this despite the challenges of COVID. So we hope that this talk will empower many others to do the same thing, whether it's tree planting or other activities, wherever they may be. And I'll pass on to Padide, who will talk about the campaign.
Thank you so much, Peter. And of course, Peter, feel free to jump in as I'm speaking as well. Peter has been a critical part of the campaign, and he has a lot of knowledge about many aspects of the things that we're going to speak about. So we want to keep this talk quite easy and informal. And to all the participants, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And if you have questions, we're just going to speak for maybe about 10-15 minutes. So we'll have plenty of time at the end to interact a bit more. And we really want to hear from you, and we really want to hear about what is it that, you know, if anything of our small experience could be useful for you. So we left plenty of time at the end for a lot of interaction. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and just begin with how our campaign began. So we began really with a simple aim, which was to fundraise for the London School of Self-Awareness. And the London School of Self-Awareness is where we all actually met. And we were having conversations about wanting to make a positive contribution. And this positive contribution was something we were discussing already long before COVID. However, it just seemed that it took on a new sense and a new meaning as the things of COVID were unfolding, and as our campaign just happened to be launching at the same time. So our motivation, we sat down and really had a honest conversation with each other between the three co-founders. And we were sort of, I guess the best way to describe it was our motivation was almost being in a sort of attitude of things can't go on the way they are. And this things can't go on the way they are had about two elements to it. The first was we were just continuing, I think, like everybody else, to receive such a tremendous amount of inputs from the world about things that just seem to not be going well, bad news, if you like. And so many statistics from every sector showing severe declines in the environment, in mental health, really a lot of rise in different kinds of illnesses. And then, of course, COVID came very shortly after these discussions we were having. And then the second aspect of we could not go on as we were was really a more personal or internal attitude that we felt we had towards things, which is we saw that we had a long list of reasons to avoid responsibility in the face of these things that we were hearing about, and I think some of us were even experiencing in our own families and amongst our own friends. And, you know, I think like everyone else, we would say that we were too busy, or that maybe it wasn't our place to take on such things. Or perhaps it was really not our business to do so, because there were governments and organizations who were so much more qualified and so much more knowledgeable to address some of these issues, which I don't know how it is for the rest of you, but I assume it might be similar, really felt overwhelming to us. And one of the things that we realized was the more we gave ourselves these reasons, the more we were disconnected. We became more and more disconnected with ourselves. And this honest conversation led us to be able to reconnect with our values and to really say, well, if there's all these things we can't do and all these things we're overwhelmed by, what is it then that we can do? And I think, PK, you wanted to make a point about responsibility here, so please jump in.
Yes, thank you. And you've already touched on a lot of what I'm going to say now. So we really wanted to shift away from, so when we talk about responsibility, we really wanted to shift away from this word that is heavy and associated with a state of obligation or whatever the negative associations that we have with the word. And instead, we wanted to use a definition used by Patrizio Paoletti, who is the founder of the International School of Self-Awareness, and break the word down into responsibility. So responsibility becomes our ability to respond to a solicitation coming from life, or an ability to respond to an awareness that has reached us from life or from whatever source. So many of us feel that things could be improved or could be different, yet many don't see that many don't see the invitation, don't recognize these things as an invitation from life to respond to. Instead, we give up our responsibility and pass it on to others, such as corporations, or the government should take care of it, or maybe it's our partner's fault and he should take care of it, without realizing that they are just like us. No, I'm not taking responsibility and they're not taking responsibility. So we hide under a myriad of excuses, whether that's conscious or subconscious, not realizing that by giving up the responsibility, we give up our ability to interact with life.
And we wanted to also add here that, you know, interacting with this value, which we call responsibility, it hasn't been easy, and it's I can certainly say personally many moments during the campaign, and still also faced with other inputs from life, I still find myself wanting to sort of shrink away and hide and pretend that some of it isn't happening. So we don't in any way want to give the impression that we have reached some, you know, pinnacle of ability to respond to life. However, as we'll see a little bit later on in the talk, actually I can speak about it right now. In order to not feel overwhelmed by taking on to do just something very small, and we did decide to start with a very small pilot project, which made it more manageable given the fact that we were all working and we had families and so on. And we just decided to plant 500 trees and raise £5,000 for the tree planting and for the London School of Self-Awareness. Now, this year we launched that 10 times more. So we're doing 5,000 trees and £50,000 raise. And we hope to continue this sort of high multiple trajectory over the next 5 years. But the important guiding principle we kind of decided on at the beginning was to do what we could where we were with what we had, which is the title of our session today. And we really left behind the idea of our actions being too small or not good enough somehow. And, you know, we did have other commitments, as we said, and we weren't really in a position, and COVID certainly wasn't allowing it, for us to launch a really great international project and plant millions of trees, which of course we would have loved to have done. And I think once we took that burden off of our shoulders, that no action was too small and whatever we were was enough, then we really felt like the momentum of the campaign began. So if I sort of summarize this first part, we were a bit fed up with how things were going, and we're kind of tired to wait for everything to resolve itself. We also knew that things could be better, and having that honest conversation between us, and I think to each one of us also with ourselves, really helped us move past some of the blocks. And also really this phrase of doing what we could where we are with what we have just helped tremendously every time we began to feel overwhelmed. So in the second phase of the campaign, what was really important, and this is where really the theme of World Values Day and reconnecting comes in. So in the first part, reconnecting was really about reconnecting with ourselves and our values. And then in the second part, I think once we sort of got over these initial internal obstacles, very quickly we realized that we knew very little about planting trees, which was a big issue since we were the More Trees campaign. And so we really realized we needed to reconnect with people, or actually connect with people. So we needed help. That was the long and short of it. And we needed technical help. For example, how do we plant these trees and make sure that they are safe and they grow and they help with the carbon offsetting that we were really hoping to achieve, as well as providing a more beautiful environment for people to interact with. And here we found some amazing partners, particularly Gone West, and their founder, James, really supported us a lot to get the trees planted and to get them planted correctly. Then the other thing was we began to really, through the interaction with our values and with the campaign, we began to understand a lot about the precision of nature and how we really only think we're separated from the environment. And this was something particularly new to me. I don't know if the other members of the campaign felt that. And I'd always known this concept theoretically. Of course, we're all interconnected, but really seeing the precision of how the environment works and the scientific way in which our technical partners addressed tree planting, it really showed me a precision of interaction between us as people and the nature that is around us, which again, sort of fed back into the concept of responsibility. So this loop, if you like, of ability to respond and reconnect, ability to respond and reconnect, really is a virtuous cycle. Then, of course, we had to take practical steps. So some of the very practical things that we did were we just set up a simple GoFundMe page initially. This year, we were accepted onto the Open Collective platform, which was really amazing for us because we had to go through a due diligence process. But GoFundMe simplified everything because they provided the platform right away, including how to take in donations. So they took care of the sort of financial aspect, as it were. We also went online and used tools like Canva to create our logos and our brochures. And we used Bensound and Unsplash for some of our social media content, for sound and for photos. And all of this was for free, by the way. So if you're looking to start a grassroots campaign, really there's just such a wealth of tools out there, and they don't cost anything. And most of them are quite easy to use. So we sort of figured if we figured it out, everybody else can too. Then we set up a simple Instagram and Facebook page, as everyone would probably do. But there again, we were really worried that we didn't have enough followers and we didn't have money to, do a big campaign like the Red Cross might be able to do. And then we went back again to the idea of just doing what we can with what we have. So if what we had was 30 followers on Instagram, that was fine. We were going to do our best and again, not burden or stress ourselves. And what was interesting was that that little Instagram page with just 30 little followers attracted the attention of a local newspaper called The Camdenist, who then nominated us for their 2020 COVID champions, for people who were basically doing some kind of positive activity during COVID. So it really showed us that our little actions, and anyone's little actions for that matter, are really enough, and small efforts do really make a big difference. The next stage for us was then the sort of scary part, which was the actual fundraising. We didn't have a huge amount of resources, as we said. We also didn't have a large community of people or followers to draw from. So one of the things that we did was we went back to what we have, and what we had were friends and family. We had access to social media. A few of us had interacted with some companies, so we knew I think it was Peter who really started that idea, because he had a couple of relationships with some business owners. And we just started with that. And soon, really, with the tremendous help, by the way, of the London School of Self-Awareness and their members, we put together these group of donors, which we called the More Trees Champions. And without them, really, we couldn't have accomplished a thing. Especially the members of the London School of Self-Awareness were particularly active. And we were so grateful that with really such little resources and beginnings, we were actually able to go over our goal of £5,000 and also to plant the trees. We also used some texts. So I wanted to, as we go along in this talk, I wanted to give these little practical inputs. We used The Soul of Money by Lynn Twist, and we adapted her approach because she was such a successful fundraiser for a project that we all know called the Hunger Project. And her approach was really such a soft and way of interacting with people. And it was a very positive way, despite the fact that the topic she was dealing with was so painful. And she somehow managed, through this methodology she developed, and which we adapted and it worked, to do fundraising in a way that really left a kind of win-win, for lack of a better word. The other thing that we did was we really saw the value in reaching out to our friends, especially during COVID, but we also thought, why not before COVID? The value of reaching out to people we hadn't reached out to, or to speak to them in a new way about why we were doing this project and why it was important to us and why we should be planting trees. And why the School of Self-Awareness, what is the importance of self-awareness, and what does it have to do with tree planting at all? And these kinds of conversations really led to deeper discussions with friends and family who maybe we had some automatic ways of interacting with. And this really opened up a way to get to, it sounds funny to say, but to get to know them all over again. On that point, I just wanted to say that self-awareness for us was really a crucial aspect, not just of the campaign, but also the future sustainability of the world that we're in. Because some of you might know, if you've practiced self-awareness, that the more we become self-aware, the more we really realize the interconnectivity of things. So what I was saying at the beginning, really realizing that we're connected with nature and connected with other people, but in a much deeper way, not just in a theoretical way. And once we feel more connected, our decisions change. And once our decisions change, everything changes. And it's a lot harder to harm the environment if we feel connected to it, just like it's hard to harm someone else if we feel connected to it. And here by harm, I don't even necessarily mean some kind of physical violence, but harming someone with a negative attitude or a negative approach of any kind. It becomes harder and harder the more we feel the deep sense that we are all connected and that we are all one. So self-awareness for us was really a crucial aspect. So this was phase 2. And phase 2, if I was just going to summarize it quickly, was expand your circle of people. We even did some cold calls, which didn't necessarily pan out well, but they certainly got us out of our comfort zone. Find out who can help you with what you don't know, as we had to do with the technical partners. Learn from authors and published works, and we certainly got a lot of information from how-to videos on YouTube. One thing that is the most obvious thing that we always seem to forget, and again, it certainly happens to me, and certainly happens at the campaign, is to just remember online search. So many times we sat down and we said, oh God, we don't know how to do this, we don't know how to do that. And then we just basically Googled it and found such a wealth of information of people who had done the very thing that we were trying to achieve. The other thing was always remember to have fun with it. We spent some time photographing in our neighborhood because we needed content and we needed pictures of trees. And actually during one of these excursions, we met a guy who was a director of a large corporation. And we really thought that was interesting because we sort of summarized it as when we live in our values, and when we reconnect, then the answers do come. As a final point, I do want to say that the path to the campaign reaching its results was not without a few bumps. So at each step, we had to be really open and flexible to recreate our strategy and to stay with the aim. We had to switch our planting site 3 times due to COVID. We had people in neighborhoods who didn't want tree planters coming near their houses because they were afraid we were going to spread COVID. So we had to really deal in that context, which now seems a while ago, but of really a heightened sense of fear, and we had to respect that, yet at the same time figure out how to continue on and achieve what we had promised the donors for the campaign. It would have been easy really to give up, and I think COVID actually provided us the exit, if you like, for that, and I'm sure the donors would have understood. But we kept going back again to the idea of responsibility and can we respond to the situation? And we continue to reaffirm that that is the vision of the world we had, and that's what we wanted to achieve and to leave as a positive sign. Now, as we go into this year's campaign for 2021-2022 planting season, we see responsibility really as a must, because it's a question, as Peter said, that life is putting to us all the time. And we have to, in a way, stay connected in order to do that. So wanted or not, what we realized is that some percentage of what happens in this world is in our hands and is within our field of influence. And so each one of us, in one way or another, is called to do what we can, where we are, with what we have. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening. And if you have questions, just open your mics and we're happy to answer you the best that we can. Thank you.
Yeah, fascinating, really. Steve White from Leicester. Incredible what you're doing. I like the way you've got a simple model, you know, for multiplying. You know, you get the money and then you do the hands-on stuff, which is I think it's a really good model, you know, and simplifies. We did a thing in South Africa to try and raise books for South Africa, and we did a similar thing, you know, which stepped it up. So I like the model you're using. Done a lot of things, you know, around tree planting. One thing I'd just like to put on the table is a guy called Sunderlal Bahuguna, who is the founder of the Chipko movement, you know, the tree hugging. I don't know whether, you know, I'm just saying, I mean, Google it in, have a look. I mean, I had the fantastic privilege. He died a few months back at 96, lived in the Himalayas, and basically he was a fearsome campaigner. And when I traveled to India quite regularly, and I actually met him and went up into the Himalayas, you know, with him, and saw what he was doing. And if ever there was a reason to fight for trees, he taught me, you know, what those trees just meant to people. And I think it's a great sort of metaphor for, you know, when you've got a tree, it's worth defending, you know, and the movement around tree hugging is where people came to villages and the villagers hugged it, and the army came and said, well, if you're hugging the tree, we'll chop you down with the tree. You know, it's a bit sort of, I don't mean exaggerated, but it just reminded me, what you've said today just reminded me like where it all starts and how you can go along and defend something. So, you know, thanks for what you've said so far, and long may it continue.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for those words. And thank you also for the reference. I will go look him up, because we are always in search of models who can keep us inspired as this campaign grows and new challenges inevitably will come. Thank you a lot.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for introducing all the campaign to Farida and Peter. Talking of India, I would like to call Nirmala. Thanks for being here with us, because she's connected from actually India. And she also has a very inspiring story. And thanks to what we started last year, we had the chance to meet her. So this campaign is also bringing us connections with amazing people around the world. I'm not going to say anything further. Nirmala, please.
Thank you, Farida. And, you know, just whatever you said resonated so much because it all starts so small. And, you know, and because of Alan here, I met Peter, and Peter to Valentina, and this whole world is so interconnected, as you said. And if we leave our minds open and we are authentic, I think so much can be done. And so just to share a little bit about how I got into planting. A few months ago, I had no idea about trees, and I had no idea about planting. And and as I said, the opportunity came and I jumped in. And sometimes I think if you overthink, it just doesn't get done. So the story is there was in the pandemic, as you know, India is badly affected, and more than everything, there was real issues of hunger. And with hunger comes the issue of nutrition and, representing the kindness movement in India. A lot of children were being very, very badly affected. And I decided, I need to find a space to put, with such lean resources, a space that we could focus on. And we looked at the indigenous people, who we call the tribals, in the state I belong to. And I tried to find a way to understand how they live and how they work, because it was all new to me. And I found local community partners who are doing incredible work with them, because I can't come as a city person from Mumbai and strut around and pretend to know everything, which I didn't. And I tried to understand the people. And one thing I realized, that my first interaction with, really, you would say, agriculture as such, was they were growing a kind of a millet. And this millet was highly nutritious. It could be grown in a forest, didn't require much to make it grow. And the people there were consuming less and less, and that particular millet became more fashionable with the wealthy and the city dwellers, who looked at it as a very big health fad. And I realized that the local children and the people are not consuming something that's been part of their diet for years. So one of the first things we did was, we said, how do we get them to grow more of that, so we could, have them consume more of that. And when we did that, we found that a very simple project, where we kind of began powdering the millet. And we now have 516 children who we've identified, and we give the powder back to their mothers so that the kids have it. So that was the first way, when I looked at something so sustainable, possible, then started looking at anyone who could fund it. And it all came one little baby step at a time. I don't know how, I call it magical. Okay, now while I was busy roaming around and finding how we powder it and how we distribute it, and one day and one challenge at a time, I met another person called Raj, who had a nursery in India. And again, I met him out of sheer coincidence, right? Again, online. These are all my new online friends, and many, many, many in COVID. The biggest benefit of COVID is, I think, the world has become so very small to me. And Raj had this nursery growing millions of trees. And he said, what are you doing? And he said, look whether fruit trees would interest the people. And that immediately, it was like a light bulb that went off, because he never said trees to me. He said fruit trees. And I, jumped at the fruit idea, because I knew it was an issue of nutrition. And so we began, and I started, and the people loved the idea. And anything that the community loves is something that's sustainable. And they said, we promise to take care of the trees. And I said, it'll take 4 years, and you might get 50 kilos of fruit. You might have to feed your family, and if you have a little extra, you can then sell it. So they looked at it as livelihood, because farming has become a big challenge in India, because of we depend on the monsoon, and the monsoon has become very erratic. And because of that, they have understood that you can't over depend on farming as a sustainable income. And so I got Raj, and I again don't know how I would pay for it or whatever. But Raj said, Nirmala, you cannot think small. My truck keeps 20,000 trees. So he put the first kind of, what I'd say, a bouncer, and said, you got to plant 20,000 or nothing. Because it's coming from far, and if we do the math, the transportation cost is not going to work out. And that's nice when people put, a challenge. And then we found villages where we grew that, and then it moved on to, now we have 43 villages, and we have 3 large areas and 3 large communities. So every household has grown around about 7 to 9 trees, so that every little tribal home now has about 7 to 9 trees minimum, which is in their little plot of land or little around their house, and they take care of it. And so the whole costing of the project came down a lot, because all I had to do was help them with the trees. and helped them with the transporting it to the village. And then they came, they picked it up, they dug, they used cow dung and a lot of goat dung because that's easily available. It's also organic. And in August this year, as of today, we've planted 60,000 fruit trees. And they're all indigenous trees, yes.
That's amazing, Nirmala. Nirmala, we haven't actually directly met. She's been interacting with the other two people in the campaign. So first of all, hello, nice to meet you.
Hello.
Finally, I've heard so much. And we're going to be partnering or collaborating with Nirmala to provide some fruit trees in India. Already last year, we had really wanted to make the campaign international, and for a whole host of reasons. And as Nirmala said, she sort of came to us in that magical way and allowed the dream of doing the tree planting, but also spreading the message of how important self-awareness is and sharing our values is really across the world to such a, far reach that we couldn't have even imagined at the time. I think at the time we were thinking maybe we can reach Europe somewhere. So to be in India for us is really a dream come true. So thank you, Nirmala, and thank you for also sharing your story.
And thank you for generously giving your support. I mean, I was just touched because I have these days, end of the day, miracle today, a miracle. So you guys went into that day. There's a miracle today when you said there's a possibility. Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. I don't think we've ever been called a miracle before, so thank you. It's the first time. If there's anyone else with questions, or if you also have your stories to share, remember that this session is really about helping people feel empowered, helping people feel that no matter what or where we are, we can take a step and we can respond, and we have the ability to respond to life, and we can do it by reconnecting with people.
I've not been involved in a campaign like this, but I was thinking as you're talking about miracles and magic and opportunities, is that people make their own luck. We say people make their own luck, and I love the way that you talked about this campaign as being founded and using your values and that connection with doing what you can and just rebuilding yourselves up all the time with those values and connection. And it's connection that creates the miracles and the magic. It's not they're not just chance that you came across them. So thank you for that. I found that really inspiring, just to hear how you just worked with what you had and got on and made a small difference to make a bigger difference. So
thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much for that. That's Emma, that makes me think, because the connection, how we managed to get in contact with Nirmala really came from so if we trace that connection back to where it came from, it really came from being open to a possibility that there could be an answer that I'm looking for out there. All I have to do is stay open to it. So the reason why we're here giving this event is because we decided to take on a challenge and participate in a competition on Open Collective to pitch our campaign in front of, we were one of the 5 campaigns. And Alan Williams, who is on the call, who is the co-founder of the World Values Day, he was there too, pitching the World Values Day. And he wrote us a nice message in the chat saying, oh, we should connect. And so if we weren't open to receiving an invitation, none of this would happen. So it's being open to exploring new avenues, being open to making new connections. It's really a big part of making something happen, because we're not here to be we can't do things by ourselves. None of us can. And there's this feeling of omnipotence, so to speak, which is an illusion. It doesn't exist. So if we can remain open to possibilities, if we can remain open to other people and be somewhat inclusive and then selective in our actions, that will help us to get to where we want to be. And it may be a zigzag way. It may be like the way a yacht sails through an ocean, you know. It doesn't go straight. It goes one way and then zigzags through. But what I think it's what Paddy said in the presentation. So we were adaptive to changes, but we never took sight of where we want to go, which I think is really important. And it's easy to perhaps get lost in the myriad of things and daily tasks and maybe lose track at some point of the destination. But I think that this is again where being a group, so there was 3 of us working together. This is where being in a group really helped, because when one of us lost track, then there was, or maybe 2 of us, if 2 of us lost track, then there was another person to sort of wake us up and say, you know, give us a slap or in the face or a tap on the back and say, look, this is not what we agreed to. This is where we're going, and pick us back up. So yeah, thank you to Alan for inviting us on to participate in the World Values Day, and thank you to the group, and thank you for everyone being here.
Peter, can I just respond to that? I'm sitting here just smiling inside, because isn't it wonderful when something like this happens? And I think the root of it is for us to remember that we're part of something much bigger than ourselves. I think sometimes, I don't know what it is, but we're encouraged to consider, you know, what difference can I make? What can I do? Whereas actually you can achieve far more just by introducing other people and other people to other people. So yourselves and Nirmala will be able to achieve far more together than each of you would be able to do on your own. And so it's that thing about looking outward rather than inward that can make such a big difference.
I entirely concur. I like what you say, the values economy behind you. And I'm looking at that, and there was a quote going back to that Sunderlal Bahugana, and he said, ecology is permanent economy. And I just thought that was a fantastic thing, you know. And I mean, if anything epitomizes what we all do, it is the fight for trees. You know, to me, it just summarizes everything. You know, they're there. I look out my window now, I can see about 10 trees. You know, I always think people who don't have that sort of landscape in them, you know, are silly, but, you know, are deprived.
Oh, I think we may have lost Stephen. Oh, there he went. Well, hopefully he'll be able to log back on. Was there anyone else that wanted to jump in? I just have.
I'm back on. I'm back.
Oh, there you are. Okay, come back.
Yeah, I've had a little bit of, you know, the connectivity literally down the lines has been a bit dodgy, but yeah, and but no, just for me, I think you got the last sentence. It was really about trees being the ultimate goal, and I mean, I'm very lucky. I've talked about the football prowess of Leicester, but Leicester was nominated in 1992 as an environment city, you know, from the Rio Summit. And we received a guy called Jeb Brugman, who came after that summit, and we planted trees with him, you know, with youngsters back in 1992. And, you know, we can go to the landscape now and we can see, I think it was something around about 10,000, and we can see them, you know, they're there, you know, they're great. And I actually live adjacent to a reclaimed rubbish tip, you know, which is called the Elston Meadows, and there's hundreds and thousands of trees on there that my wife and I can walk every day. You know, you feel lucky, you know, if you're in that sort of, so why shouldn't we fight to try and get others that opportunity to be part?
That makes so much sense. Thank you so much for saying that. And I just noticed we have someone here who runs the meditation course for the London School of Self-Awareness. So I'm just going to put Giuseppe Bonfiglio on the spot. And and see if he'll tell us a couple of things about his meditation sessions that a group of volunteers started and have been carrying forward at no cost from the London School of Self-Awareness, because so much of what has been shared and Alan commented on and Emma also commented on and Nirmala and so forth is really based on being able to begin with a clean initial state, which is internal, if you like. So how can I feel connected? How can I see the beauty that's in nature? How can I want to do something for others? A lot of that starts by quieting the noise inside and the barriers and sometimes fears. I mean, we have fear of other people. It's almost instinctive, isn't it, at certain points? And so, Giuseppe, if you wouldn't mind commenting just a little bit on that. I know I'm putting you on the spot.
Sure, absolutely. I am unprepared, but I am happy that you put me on the spot. Thank you so much to everyone for being here, and thank you, Alan, for organizing this marvelous opportunity. It is definitely, I mean, there is also Stephen here, who is my co-partner in crime in this activity that we started actually now more than a year ago. It was triggered mostly by, obviously, the COVID situation, and together actually with Padide, with Peter, also with Valentina and some other students of the International School of Self-Awareness, we asked ourselves, what else can we do? Now we see obviously the three, I mean, Padide, Peter and Valentina doing this kind of activity. And so we said, okay, what else can we do? What can we jump on? What does the world around us really needs that we can offer, that we can make ourselves useful for this moment? And yeah, with Stephen, we sat together and we said, okay, let's start it. Let's do this activity, which we used to do in presence in the past in many different ways. And then eventually we started to learn a little bit about doing it online. And so it became, we started the first 7 sessions that we start were based on fear, and we called it Beyond Fear, because we felt deeply inside our heart that people around the world were feeling a lot of fear about this situation. So we said, we are lucky enough to be studying self-awareness. We are lucky enough to experience this context, this moment in a different way. So how can we share, how we can put it together in a way that people can be supported by these ideas that we have at our disposal. I want to say also, Stephen, jump in when you feel that you want to jump in, okay? Don't hold back. And so these first 7 sessions that started were quite, we brought to some decent results, in the sense that people were saying, oh, thank you so much for doing it. This time that we spent together was very useful for me. You have given me some things I didn't think about. Some others were saying, oh, you gave me something I already knew, but I didn't really quite see it in that way. And so then with the time going, we did these first 7 sessions. We said, okay, let's do something else now. Let's go and do something with, we called it a change in a changing world, because we saw that adapting to the current circumstances, it was important for everyone. So each time we tried to structure these events in a way that it gave some ideas and something that people could practically do every day in their own lockdown, and something that could be tangible for them to move away from those way of thinking, from those emotions, and from even the physical, how they were living the day in a physical way, like what were they doing. So that was like the first part. And then in the second part, we started to do, which is the one that we have been doing now for, I think now it's 45 weeks, more or less, consecutively, which is the one that we are doing now, which is listening to the silence, which has been listening to myself, basically is the title. But basically, we thought that it was important for everyone to be able to go a little bit deeper into themselves. As the founder of the International School likes to say, it's not about doing a step forward or a step backwards, but it's about doing a step inwards. And this step inwards was becoming, and was, I mean, the feedback that we got from people was incredible. I mean, it was about feeling healing inside of them. It was about feeling more peace in their daily life. It was, you know, all those things which keep going. I mean, we haven't stopped. We kept, Stephen and I have been keeping it for every week. And now we have same thing that Paddy mentioned before. We have some other students in the group supporting and helping in doing the activity. We have been, you know, trying to keep this as alive as possible for everybody who wants to do something, you know, do some activity. And so this is basically what has connected us to many people. Stephen, you wanted to say something, sorry.
Sure. I just wanted to underline the connection that Paddy made. And for us, the step inward is also a step outward. So in focusing on listening to myself, listening, being able to take some distance from all the noise, the fears, the ideas, and connecting inwardly to our values. What we then begin to see is that we begin to connect more to the world around us. And therefore, the connection between the more that I meditate, the more that I listen to myself, the more that I'm in touch with myself, the more I am sensitive to the world, and therefore have a greater appreciation of the trees, of the environment, of my responsibility to the world and to myself. And so, you know, this is really the focal point. I think this is the thing that you know, Paddy and Peter and Valentina were connecting to, is that the inner work and the outer work are exactly the same. They're intimately involved, connected to each other.
Thanks so much, Stephen. Thank you, Giuseppe, for coming in just at the last minutes of our time together. If you've been following the chat, there are some links to the Eventbrite for the London School of Self-Awareness meditation sessions. Peter also put in his direct telephone number, and there's the More Trees campaign email. So if you'd like to get in touch, please call us for whatever it is that we can help you with, or if you have people you think we need to know, or if there's some kind of reciprocal relationship, we're really open to, and we actually really want to hear from you. So please get in touch, get connected. And of course, I couldn't close without saying, please look in the chat. Peter just posted our Open Collective fundraising page for this year. We have a big goal. We're trying to get to £50,000, which if you click on the page and scroll to the bottom, you can basically make a donation of any amount. And we really every little penny and pound counts. So whatever you can contribute is amazing. Thank you so much for being here. We hope to hear from you, and have a wonderful day ahead. Take care. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Enjoy World Value
Bye.
Day.
Thank you. Thank you, Alan. Bye-bye.